Welcome back to the Super Fantasy Bros Show, which is a part of the Triple Play Fantasy Network. I am one half of the team, Jacob Dunn, and always my podcast co-host, not a podcast because we're just a show, Kevin Coleman. Bro, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm still on the COVID IR list.
Mm,
I'm working my way off, so I'm just trying to get my energy back. I think that's the most thing that's kind of zapped me a little bit. But excited to get on here. I know last week we were trying to do two shows, but I came down with COVID, so I'm glad to get back and just talk some football.
Man, back with the MJ flu game, man. You just can't stay away from this
I
show,
cannot.
bro. I appreciate it, man. So, today, we are going to be going over rookie draft strategy before and after the 2022 rookie draft, including trading those positions that we covet. And after that, we'll go over our top 3 rankings for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But before we start, we want to give a shout out to Fantasy Points. All right, so since Kevin is the dynasty guru, I want to hear his draft strategy, and all of you guys listen up. So, Kevin, what is your strategy when you go into the 2022 rookie draft?
Yeah, I mean, so the way I look at picks and just to understand kind of rookie picks and how it goes, there's a great chart online. My friend FFK Baller always puts it up. It's talking about when the value rookie picks. I mean, in
Mhm.
reality, you shouldn't get rid of rookie picks right now because the only thing that happens is they increase in value up until your rookie draft. Like, I very rarely, unless I'm going for it at the end of the dynasty season for a championship, I do not trade my rookie picks until the draft because it just doesn't make any sense
Mm,
because these guys fall in love with prospects. You see it right now. People are falling in love with Rondale Robinson and these other guys, kind of lower tier prospects because they want to be right about these guys. And so use that to your advantage. Take that to your advantage. And that's when I'm going to be trading picks. So if you're looking at it from a perspective of like, hey, when should I trade picks? It's right during the draft because let's say, for example, let's say someone's really high on Brees Hall, and then Hall is falling down the board. He's at 106, and the guy that really wants him is at 110. You know what that guy at 110 is going to give up for that 106 now? Way more than he would have 2 days
right,
before that, before the draft was even started, because they figured Hall was going to be gone. So in
right.
my personal opinion, you wait for the picks. I do want to just touch real quick though, also on just strategy wise right now. You know, we did a mock draft at the Debbie Royale recently, and we didn't take a quarterback in a super flex mock until 106. And
Mm,
there's a reason why. It's because this quarterback class is confusing. This quarterback class is going to be interesting to see where they get valued at in the NFL wise. And so, in terms of like where you're drafting guys right now, to me right now, the guys I'm taking at first are the wide receivers. So really, in my reality, you know, I have wide receiver, running backs, and quarterbacks in terms of tiers of like where I'm growing right now. I have 3 pretty clear cut tier wide receivers, maybe 4. We'll talk about that. But when you look at your strategy right now, I think in reality, like I'm taking the wide receivers first because if you look at like the way Chase Jefferson, these guys have done it. I'm not
right.
saying that these guys are that caliber, but that's where the value is to me personally. And I don't overreach on running backs, especially in this class. I think that there are some question marks for every single running back in this class. And so I'm not going to overreach. Like, for example, how are guys feeling right now that took Miles Sanders 101 or 102 in draft slash a few years ago, right? Like, I
Yeah.
look at this class being that class, the Jacobs, the
Okay.
Sanders.
Okay. Yeah. And if you have the 106 and the guy at the 110 wants your pick, you can always ask him for the 2023 first round pick, right?
Yeah.
If they want to jump that high, which is what you've been preaching, Kevin. You want to stockpile picks for 2023.
Yeah, no, I just, I was looking at my rankings earlier, and I mean, there's legitimately 18 guys right now in the 23 class that I think are
Mhm.
worth first round picks in terms of
Wow.
value.
Wow.
So, and that's across the board. And if some of these quarterbacks hit that get better, because I think the quarterback class is a little lacking next year, and now we're going to look at like a legitimate maybe first 2 rounds of guys that you really want. And
Yeah.
I would say this also: if you're in a rookie draft and you're trying to gain value, get a 23 second because those are not as valued by people either. And you
Okay.
know what? Even if that's an early 23 second or a mid 23 second, it could still carry the value of a first. And I think that that's a good strategy to use as well.
That's saying a ton about the 2023 class. But
I love the 23 class. And everybody always says it like, oh, the next class, but this
yeah,
is real. Like these players, this class, like positional wise, running back, wide receivers, they're special.
I'll keep that in mind. I will definitely keep that in mind when I and working the trade portal. But for now, we will focus on 2022. So first off, we're going to go over to quarterbacks. We're going to rank the 2022 quarterbacks, and we're going to start with Kevin. Kevin, right now, who is your number one at quarterback?
Yeah. Okay. So right now I'm gonna go Sam Howell. I think I tweeted out recently he's a
Okay.
forgotten quarterback, or he's underrated because he is. I think he's got good arm strength. We talked about him on the WRL a lot. I think that he's been prospect fatigue because everybody's been talking about him since his freshman year at North Carolina.
Right.
He had a down year at North Carolina, but when I say down, he lost almost all of his offensive weapons. His offensive line was one of the worst in college football. And so a lot of things kind of went against him, but
Mhm.
I still think that he's going to have a good Senior Bowl that's coming up here pretty soon. And if he does that, I think he could be the first quarterback taken. So, in my opinion, when I'm looking at these quarterbacks, I look at Hal as being my kind of my top guy. But it is also with the caveat of like, okay, I'm going to wait till the draft though. I want to know what these guys. I'm going to use the NFL to cheat for me. I'm not. No one can tell you about these guys 100%. If they tell you that, they're lying. I'll use the NFL to show me, okay, you value this guy's a top 10 guy. Okay, why? And if I kind of have Hal, like if Hal fits in that top 10 and I have him here right now, then okay, he'll be my first quarterback taken.
It would be tough to lose Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, two explosive offensive weapons that you had the year prior, right?
Yeah.
So,
And Daz Newsome and Diami
right,
Brown. I mean, you're looking at these guys, and these other wide receivers have not stepped up. Downs was there, but they
right.
lost their running backs. Ty Chandler was not the answer at the running back position either. They've lost their linemen. They didn't necessarily have good. They kind of run an elementary offense with Mac. Like, there's a lot of things that went against him this year, but he still had a fair year. I wouldn't say it was an amazing year, but he still made throws. And when those throws pop off, you got to love it.
I trust you. I kind of have UNC fatigue with the quarterbacks after Mitch Trubisky, but I know that he was just like a one-year wonder, and Sam Howell has been a top prospect since his freshman year. So I'll trust you there, Kevin. First up on my list, I'm gonna go with Kenny Pickett. And when I looked at tape, he looks like the most NFL-ready quarterback. I don't think he has a crazy ceiling. But if he's drafted to, let's say, a Broncos team or a Steelers team with the weapons already in place around him, I think he could have low-end quarterback two value right away. So that is my pick now, but it could definitely change as we get closer to the combine.
Yeah, maybe it's chuckle a little bit when he said he's the closest to NFL. That's because he's 30, Jacob. That's why. No, I
Yeah.
listen. I worry about his profile. The only thing I worry about is that he played for 4 years and we didn't see this, and then he does. And
Okay.
so he came back and he looks okay. I just feel like I'm going to be real with this quarterback class. It feels like a trap. You know, Star Wars. It's a trap. That little
Yeah.
meme. That's it. It's just there's a lot of traps going on here, a lot of landmine traps here. We
Right.
haven't had a class like this in a while, but there's some traps here with it. I feel like Kenny could be a trap.
Right on. Right on. So who is your number two quarterback?
So I got Matt Corral as my number two. Again, I like Corral. I think he has some intangibles. He cut down his interceptions this year, but he never had that game that really stood out to me this year. He was pretty average throughout. But see, the thing is, being average this year actually gets you higher up just
Right.
based on the quarterback prospects. I will say that something that alarmed me a little bit was I think I forget who tweeted out, but it was a good informational piece about Corral. 75% of his numbers came from screens, dump offs,
Hmm.
or running back screens or RPOs, and so that worries me a little bit when you look at his numbers and what he was able to do. A lot of it was scheme based. So
Right.
I think he's got the arm talent, but is he good enough to get first round draft capital? And I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand. I know a lot of people that watch this stuff, but if you don't get first round draft capital, you're out. Like as a quarterback prospect, it's very, very low. I think the hit rate is like under 10% if you don't get first round draft capital. So I would watch the Lions at 31. If Corral is still on
Hmm.
the board, the Lions are sitting there with that second pick in the first round. That would be if he doesn't go there. Now I'm shitting myself. And I have Corral. I like Corral, but if he doesn't go at that 31 mark, I feel like you got to be a little nervous.
I would like that. I would like that landing spot for Corral just because
Me
with
too.
Swift and the weapons that are already there, he can run that RPO offense way better than Goff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt Corral is also my quarterback too. I just think he exudes confidence. And I know I've seen a lot of people have him as their quarterback one in this class, and that could be the case if he can hit his ceiling. But if he goes to, let's say, the Washington football team or to the Detroit Lions, who already have a decent set of skill positions around him, I think he can flourish. But like you said, Kevin, he has to go to that right scheme.
He's got to go to the scheme, and I think Lions would be a good fit for him. I like that fit. Depending on what they do with the wide receiver position, they'll probably bring somebody in. The only thing is like if they're okay with Goff and they don't feel like Corral hits that mark for them, they'll probably take a wide receiver at 31 too. Like they need one. And so if, let's say Garrett Wilson's still on the bird, Traylon Burke, some of these guys that we're probably going to talk about, maybe Drake London, like there's a realistic part of it. Like, oh no, they didn't get the draft capital, and now we're worried about him. But I think, like you said, he's got moxie.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of it factor. But he's got to get the capital.
Yeah, absolutely. So who do you got at number 3, Kevin?
Yeah, so in 3, I cheated. I put Kenny and Malik Willis down.
Okay.
For me, I want to talk about Malik a little bit. I'm going to dive into Malik this weekend. I have some free time because of COVID. Thanks, COVID. But I watched him a little bit. I can't say a little bit. I've watched him a lot, but I want to dive into his all 22. I finally got some all 22 tape. And, he's got the highest upside of every quarterback in his class for fantasy purposes because of his rushing ability, but also his arm. Like, it is talented. And someone who I really respect, his name is Angelo Fantasy. You can find him on Twitter. We've been talking about Willis a little bit, and he was like, hey, guys passed on Mahomes too. Guys passed on these guys that looked just like Willis, and he had his same skill set.
Right.
And that made me kind of double take a little bit. And I said, if he's saying this and other people are saying that too, I need to go back and see it. So for me, it's Kenny and Malik, but Malik has the highest ceiling of this group.
I absolutely agree because I said it was super close between Malik Willis and Sam Howell, but I'm going to go with the upside play with a Malik Willis because I love those quarterbacks who can run. And Willis has fantastic speed and scrambling skills. Like we saw in last week's Chiefs-Bills game, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen weaved in and out of traffic and either tucked it and ran or bought time to find the open wide receiver. And I think that Willis has those traits if developed properly. So I will definitely go with that upside for fantasy who can give me those rushing yards.
That's kind of I think, in my opinion right now. Now, I will say, if you're one of those weirdos like me that drafts before the NFL draft, that Willis is going to be a hell of a value because what's happening right now, I've seen Willis go with like the 208 in the draft, in a super flex draft. And the reason why is because he doesn't have draft capital. But if he gets drafted in the first, he's going to be a top 5 pick. So if you can go out there and maneuver him, be playing Debbie, those type of things, he might not be a bad guy to go grab.
I like that a lot. All right, so let's switch over to running backs, Kevin. Here are our top 3 running backs. And Kevin, who is your top guy at the running back position?
So if we're looking at running backs, got to pop this on next time. So it is going to be Isaiah Spiller for me is number 1. And again, a lot of Spiller hate right now that I've been seeing everywhere, from analytic guys and other stuff there. But again, I don't think these classes is that special. So I think Spiller is one of those guys when I look at, I like the tape. I think he has quick feet, best feet in this class, even above Hall. I think he can explode in the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have top end speed either. Like, this class is the Jacob Sanders class. Like, it is 100% that class. So when you look at Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, and Monty, Spiller, Hall, and Walker, they're the same 3 guys. So the reality is, I mean, running back 2s. And I've always said that. A lot of these guys are running back 2s. Walker, I feel like, it's a little bit of a trap. I like Walker, but not as high as some people do. So Spiller would be my number 1. I just feel like it's a cop-out. Draft capital and who goes. And I don't know necessarily – I think that there's not going to be one running back in the first round this year. I don't see anybody getting that first-round draft capital. We'll see. If it is, it's late. But with the Bills, with Singletary, maybe with Duvall even, maybe they do kind of want that. Because I saw McDermott came out today and said he wants to have more rushing attack or something like that, which is just stupid. But I don't know where they're going to go. So for me, it's Spiller and Hall, and then a clear tier break with Walker.
Yeah, if anyone's going to grab a running back, it's probably going to be like a late round pick and someone trades back into the first round to grab someone, right? I can see that happening.
Yeah.
But for me, my RB1 is the same as yours, Kevin, Isaiah Spiller. And it was extremely close between Isaiah Spiller and our next guy here, Breece Hall. Like both are the same size at 6'1" and 215 and 225 respectively. The tiebreaker for me is age and the amount of touches that they had in college. All right. So Breece Hall had 800 touches during his 3-year career at Iowa State. Isaiah Spiller had 615 touches during his 3-year career at Texas A&M. So I know this isn't anything scientific, but these guys are virtually the same age at 20 years old and have the same measurables with the same workhorse capabilities. So not knowing which team they're on with the opportunity, I'll just take the rookie with a little less tread in Isaiah Spiller.
Yeah, and I do think that, there's I don't want to say a misnomer, but I do think that, like, when you're looking at, someone did a study about how much volume running backs get in college, and it's actually not necessarily a negative thing because it does show that they can carry volume in the NFL. So
Sure.
I have seen that with Brees, like Jonathan Taylor comps in
Jonathan
terms of
Taylor, right.
volume. In terms of volume, like, hey, they have used that, they've had that ability, like they can carry it, and I think that that is true, and I think that is the one knock for Spiller. Some people have said, well, Spiller has shared time with Devin Achane, a little
Sure.
bit of LJ, a little bit of Nia Smith. And it's like, well, why is he sharing time with those guys? I think it's more about their coach and the system than it is
Right.
about the player. But that's just a film analytics thing that, they're going to always fight with me on that one.
Exactly. So I kind of spoiled our number 2 here, Kevin, but I think we both agree who's number 2.
Yeah, I'll just go quickly on mine. Hall is number 2, and then
Yeah.
Walker is 3, and I don't
Yeah.
really see how it's any different for a lot of people yet. If you
Right.
have anybody else in your top 3, I think you're trying a little harder than you need to.
Agreed.
Hall is good. He's going to score. He's going to get the volume. He's Monty, and I know it's a shitty comp because they went to the same school and everybody's there, but that's who
It
he
worked.
is. Like,
Right.
he's a running back too, and if he goes to a team. Again, I just look at the running back landscape and I'm like, okay, well, that team needs a running back. Like the Dolphins, they're going to do a coaching scheme. What is that
Yep.
going to look like? Like,
Right.
am I happy about him going to a place like that? Like, there's a ton of question marks. If someone could find themselves on the Falcons, I'd be happy. I just don't know if they're going to really put draft capital into that. I know they wanted to last year, so that would be an interesting spot for him. Like, it
Mhm.
really just comes down to where is he going to get the volume, and if he doesn't get the volume, then I'm going to be out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kenneth Walker, 5'10", 200 pounds. He came out of virtually nowhere this season and delivered over 1,600 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns and a receiving score. So I believe he has a lot of upside. And he has a case to be the best running back in this class if he can realize his potential and just keep getting better. But I prefer the floor of Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall because we've seen it longer, and like Kenneth Walker came out of nowhere, but that doesn't mean that Walker doesn't have upside and potential. So again, it's all about the landing spots for me with all of these RBs.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. Like, I've been seeing this about Walker. Like, well, he doesn't catch balls.
Right.
Okay, that's true, but neither did AJ Dillon, and he just caught more balls this last year than he has in any other
That's true.
season. Like, I don't think we know a lot about some of these guys because of the way they were schemed, and so I think
Right.
it's just like, hey, let's see if he can do it. I do think that you have to take it with limitations. There is like, can he be a 3-down back? And I think that's where the concern is because if he's not a 3-down back, then he's not going to get the
Right.
catch.
I guarantee you, Kevin, there's going to be a highlight video of Kenneth Walker catching all these balls, and Twitter is going to explode, and he's going to be the
Yeah.
RB1 on everyone's list. Oh my gosh, I can see it now. But I digress. So we're going to move on to top 3 wide receivers. All right. So Kevin, there's our guy right there, that beast of a man. Who is your number 1?
I put him on there. He's not my number 1 though. But
Oh,
so
okay.
to me, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State.
All
I
right.
think he separates himself well. I saw a few comps like to Antonio Brown, like not like head case Antonio Brown, but like
Route
prime
runner.
Antonio Brown, and even like a little Keenan Allen. And I don't hate those comps. Like
Sure.
he gets open, creates separation. He has the best hands in this class, like bar none. This kid catches everything. If you go watch him play against Michigan, he had a hell of a catch on the sideline touchdown where he mossed somebody. It was good. Like to me, Garrett Wilson and Traylon Burks are 1A, 1B.
Right on. I think that Garrett Wilson has several arguments on why he should be considered the number 1 overall. He's a
Yeah.
route running technician. Like you said, he has AB-like qualities. All right. He's very efficient. He can break ankles and has a ton of speed. What amazes me is that he had such a good year at Ohio State with 4 other wideouts who are extremely talented and have like that first round talent already. Yet he still had over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, he killed it amongst a wide receiver core with superstar wideouts. Like that's insane that he stood out amongst all those guys at OU. So, I prefer another guy that we are about to talk about. I have Garrett Wilson as my number one, but I prefer this next guy here as my number one, and that's Treylon Burks. I think that Treylon Burks is just a physically gifted athlete standing in at 6'3", 232 pounds, just a monster. All right. And to give you some context, DK Metcalf measured in at 6'3" and 228 pounds coming out of Ole Miss. Combined with Burke's incredible size is his speed and has the look and feel of that next alpha wideout. All right. So I have the number one pick in my dynasty draft coming up, and I am debating hard on picking him first overall if he lands in the right situation.
Yeah, I would go with Garrett. You know what the thing is though, I think people on Twitter and people in general are going to be higher on Treylon than I think the NFL is. I think that there's going to be some concern about Treylon Burks, and with the fact of like N'Keal Harry, these other guys that we've seen that are they're catch point guys and 50-50 guys can struggle. Now Burks is better than that, so don't put me in that same category with those guys. But I think that Wilson's going to get drafted first. I'd be shocked if Wilson didn't get drafted first, and I do think Jameson Williams might get drafted second over Burks based on speed, even though he tore his ACL and those type of things. Like I think that the NFL might not like Burks as much as everybody else.
Dang. Well, you know me, Kevin, I'm a little bit of a heightist. So,
yes.
Like Treylon Burks, 6'3", Garrett Wilson, 6 foot. But Jamar Chase has proven at 6 foot that you don't have to be 6'3" plus to be a dominant wideout. So you can definitely persuade me here, Kevin, if you would rather take Garrett Wilson. Now, I would definitely love to see where each one ends up, because I will definitely take the better quarterback. But right now, just without any teams, I'll take the height over Wilson, but that might be a mistake. I don't know. Like, I want to see how the combine shakes out. I want to see where they go. So this is extremely exciting. And again, these are our early rankings. They could change. But for now, Kevin, who do you have at number 3?
Yeah, so my number 3 guy for me is Jameson Williams. I like Drake London. I'm not as high on Drake London as others, and I think those are your top 4 consensus. I was a big Waddle guy last year, as a lot of people know. He was my wide receiver too, and I look at Jameson as almost being kind of the same. I know they have different profiles, but speedy, they can create separation. Jameson's an underrated route runner, and it'll be interesting to see. Now, I have seen a mock to the Raiders. Don't hate that. I think that would actually be a good spot for Jameson in terms of, hey, he could take basically, he could take Ruggs' spot. He can kind of be that over-the-top guy. You have Renfro there. You have Waller. Like, I don't think that's a terrible spot. It depends on what they do with Carr. But Jameson, to me, is my 3rd guy right now. And it's just based on film, and I know analytics guys hate that. I know analytics has him like 6th, 7th, or 8th in this wide receiver class. But I have him just ahead of Drake.
I like Jameson Williams too, but I went ahead and went with Drake London standing in at 6'5", 209 pounds. There aren't many wide receivers with that height. Like the only one that comes to mind in the NFL is Mike Evans, who is truly, an alpha wideout. And London isn't only tall, but he is an alpha. All right. He missed half of the season with an ankle fracture and was still voted in the Pac-12, or he was still voted Pac-12 Player of the Year. All right. He finished the season with 88 catches for 1,084 yards and 7 touchdowns in only 8 games. All right. That's a beast right there. So I think he has the skills to compete for the wide receiver 2 spot on a wide receiver needy team. Like you said, Kevin, if he lands on the Detroit Lions, I think that's a fantastic spot to pair with Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot. And I think that London, if he lands in the right spot, I've said that a lot, but I think that he can contribute at least wide receiver 4 numbers right away.
Yeah, he's gonna be fine. Like, and I do think though, like you like your tall wide receivers. I used to, but I've kind of changed the last couple of years in terms of height and what I'm looking at in terms of like there. I just think Jameson's that game changer, where I think Drake's a very solid possession guy. So I think we're knitting hairs there though. Like it's gonna be close. It depends on where they go. But yeah, I would take Jameson.
I respect that. And now for our last Our last position here, tight end. Kevin, who do you got as your number one tight end?
Yeah,
Or
we're gonna go with our guy Trey McBride
yes,
from Colorado State. I like Trey. I think that he separated himself this year. He was literally the offense at
yes,
Colorado State. They were so bad. I think his
yes,
usage rate was through the roof, 90 percentile. And he has that ability, kind of yak ability. He's a playmaker. They
hmm,
use him a lot of different ways. I think he even had a 70-yard rushing touchdown on the end around this year, the game I was watching because I had
he
him in
did.
DFS. Like he is one of the best tight end prospects in this class. And I also think like he's one of the best athletes in this class at his position. Like he can do a
Yeah,
lot of different things that the NFL is going to like. But he also his first 2 years he was actually an incredible blocker.
hmm,
And I do
yeah.
think that he has all of those intangibles that you want to see.
6'4", 260 pounds, and super fast, like you said, and he is a great blocker. So an NFL team is going to be all over him and just integrate him into their offensive plan right away. All right. He only had one receiving touchdown, but he had 90 catches for over 1,100 yards. And like you said, Kevin, he was on a porous Colorado State Ram team. I mean, I'm out here in Colorado, and that team was bad. All right, but
Yeah.
he was their only lone bright spot, offense, defense, anything. Like even in the whole Mountain West Conference, he was like their bright spot. All right, he was a treat to watch on a terrible team.
What
Imagine,
happened? What happened to Colorado football? Like in general, it is bad out there, Jacob.
I mean, I love my Buffs, and we had a good year with Mel
Uh,
Tucker, who is now with Michigan State.
yeah,
Mel Tucker burned us for Michigan State, and we've never been the same. We just can't hold any prospects, and no one wants to come here.
yeah.
Mel Tucker brought so much energy, and now he's gone. I digress. It sucks. Just Colorado football in general has just been a bummer in the NFL and NCAA. Hard to talk about, Kevin. I'll say
All
that.
right, sorry.
No,
I was doing the Colorado depth chart for something that we're working on with the Deveray out. I was laughing when I was thinking about you. I was like, man, this team is bad.
it is horrible, man. Yeah. Okay, so our number two tight end, probably there is no debate because it's Trey McBride and this guy, Kevin.
Yeah, for me, it's Jalen Weidemeyer
Yeah.
from Texas A&M. Good story, 3-star kid that they didn't even think was going to really play for them, and then the injuries, he basically vaulted up his freshman year. I think he's a very solid tight end. I think he blocks well. I think his athleticism kind of hurts him a little bit because I do think that he struggles. He's not a top end speed guy, but he's going to be that solid possession tight end. And he kind of reminds me of it's kind of like a mix of the Steelers tight end right now.
Pat Fryermuth.
Well, kind of Fryermuth in a way, kind of that kind of. I think Fryermuth's a little bit of a better athlete that can block and do those type of things.
Uh-huh.
So like kind of in the middle. Like I think that he can. He's a great hands guy. He blocks very well. He's
Yeah.
excelled there because that's what he was required to do when he was younger. And that's what they really thought. They brought him in to be a blocking tight end. And he's elevated his game, so he's got a lot of potential. Like he has a high ceiling.
Yeah, and he can make a lot of difficult catches in traffic, and that's what you want, a guy who can make those up the seam, those difficult catches for your young quarterback or any quarterback. So, 6'5", 255 pounds, has a size advantage. I like that a lot. And he is a tremendous blocker on top of decent speed. So I like him there at number 2 as well. So number 3, I think there's a consensus number 3, but I'm curious, who do you have as your third tight end, Kevin?
I don't think there's a consensus at all because I don't know
Okay.
who the hell is going to be third time. To me, I like Cade Otton from Washington. I've always been a big
Okay.
Otton fan. He had COVID this year. He had some injuries, and that Washington team was awful. So, like, I do think that he struggled a little bit there, but he's a very solid tight end, and he's
Yeah.
got NFL pedigree with his family. His brother is now a tight end at Washington. I think that Otton can be kind of that guy that we're like, oh wow, I should have drafted him more, and I think he can kind of set a role there. If he can get drafted in like the 4th round, 5th round, I do think that's a value. And I like him. I like where he's going. I think he's got good hands. He's pretty athletic too. And the first 3 years where he was committed to learning how to play tight end because in high school he played wide receiver and he also played like running back because he went to a small high school in Washington. So he had to learn the position. So it took him a little while to develop. And if Cade can go to the right spot, I think that you're looking at a very good value. If you're in a tight end premium league and Cade's there in the 3rd or 4th, I think you take a shot on Cade.
Interesting. Okay. See, I have Trey And then I have Jalen, and then a very distant third is Charlie Kolar out of
Yeah.
Iowa State. I'm curious what you think of that, but hey, he's 6'5", he's 257 pounds. His size is what makes him intriguing and has a massive catch radius. He's not as athletic as the other two that we have already mentioned, but he can be a decent tight end too for an NFL team. All right, for fantasy, I'll just keep an eye on him and maybe take a flyer in the late rounds to see if his skills can actually translate to the NFL.
Yeah, you hit that on the head. I mean, going into this year, people or last year, they thought he came out, he'd be like tight end 1 or 2. He's definitely
Yeah.
fallen off a little bit.
Mhm.
But I like him. I think he's going to be okay. Like, it depends on, like you said, draft capital. He's not athletic. He struggles in blocking. I think, but he does catch. Like, he's got good catch radius. Like, he's one of those guys that kind of reminds me of just like those possession tight ends that if he scores a touchdown, you're happy, right? Like, the 2 catches, 30 yards, a touchdown. Like, can he kind of get those red zone targets there?
Right.
The tight end positions, it's okay this year. It's okay.
Okay.
It's got solid depth pieces, but it just really depends on what these guys like. The guy that I didn't put on a list, and we'll get out of here because I know we're going too long, is Cole Turner.
Okay.
Kid from Nevada. He was a former wide receiver. He put on 25 pounds of muscle from his sophomore to junior year. He tore it up with Carson Strong these last 2 years. He's looked good. He learned the position. He's an athlete. He can run good routes. Like, that's a guy to keep an eye on for like a tight end sleeper.
I like that a lot, Kevin. And there you guys have it. Those are our top 3 at each position. Very early. There's still plenty of time to change, but those are our top 3 initial 2022 rankings for the rookies. Kevin, is there anything that you want to tell our peeps before we head out?
No, hey, just keep subscribe to the channel, keep
Yes.
liking our videos. We appreciate you guys there, and just get ready for your rookie drafts. A lot of good rookie content coming out, and I'm going to plug the Devy Royale podcast because we do a lot of rookie content right now. We just did a whole 2 rounds of it this last episode. We're going to do rounds 3 and 4. Talk about sleepers tonight if you're watching this on a Tuesday, but you can always find it on the podcast.
Love it, Kevin. All right, guys. Until then, subscribe and follow us on Twitter. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.